We are recording. So, good morning, everyone. My name is Joyce Seitzinger, and I'm from Academic Tribe. And together with Spiros and Mark, we are your hosts for the LX conference. And I'm really looking forward to this morning's session with Dr. Jess Knott from Michigan State University. We've got a few housekeeping things to get through. We're having some trouble. We're just noticing that some people are having trouble logging in, and Mark is working on setting that up. But if you've got colleagues who are having that trouble, then please tell them that just clearing their cache seems to be working and then restarting the browser. And in the meantime, I just want to remind everyone about the hashtag, which you can find at hashtag LXConf. And I also just want to remind people about the ways to actually share their work, which is that we've got the Open Studio spaces. So we've got Open Studio live spaces. These are rooms like this one, which will be happening, in fact, straight after Jess's session this morning. But there's also a way for you to actually share your projects, maybe work in progress, or maybe a particular aspect of LX design that you want to focus on. We had a fascinating conversation last night during our last night for us in the Open Studio, which went for an hour and 10 minutes, which was all kind of like brought to the fore by Yishai's presentation on design patterns. And we talked for a long time about, what design patterns could be and how we can get more rigorous about them. It was really great, and really glad we've recorded it. So we'll share that later today. But you can also share your projects in an asynchronous way and get feedback from everyone on it. So today we've got Dr. Jess Knott, and then Perrin Rowland, who's in New Zealand, who will be talking 2 hours from now, and then there's me at the end of the day. And my session is really about facilitating design, and so I'll be sharing, some of the ways that I facilitate design, but I'm also really looking forward to people joining in the conversation and talking about their approaches to facilitating design in their organization. And then there's an open studio tonight, which will be right before my session, and so for that one, we've decided to make that a book club. So please come along and talk about your favorite design, UX, learning design, etc. books. And then, of course, there's the hallways and lounge areas where you can interact as well. And then we've had a little bit of a badge competition, and people have gone into fever pitch with it and been super creative and shared them. And we'll be sure to put together a little gallery that will pop up on the conference hub. And there were a lot of creative submissions, but I think the absolute winner, and in fact, this winner went and created a second badge because they were like, oh, I want to be more on brand. But the clear winner was his first badge, and this is Stephen Lowe's badge, who made a badge where he was wanted for crimes against instructional design. So, Stephen, I'll be in touch with you. I love it too. Stephen, I'll be in touch with you to be sure that you get one of the 5 ebooks that we've got to give away this week from Roosevelt Media. I know, it's fantastic. Okay, and so with that, I'll move into the big idea session. Most of you will be familiar with it by now, but basically you have the option of actually posing questions on the speaker pages before the session ever starts. And in fact, someone popped in earlier to leave a message here, which we'll be referring back to at the end. And I'll be kind of fielding questions in the chat as we go along. And then, of course, at the end, you've got questions. You've got the opportunity to ask Jess your questions personally. And the slides and the recordings will be on the speaker page. With that, Jess, I am going to move over to your slides and then do your introduction. All right.
So this is the time in the show when we figure out if I can drive this and Twitter all at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. I haven't quite given you your presenter privileges yet, but because I have to do the formal thing, I have to introduce you. Okay. So Jess is, I'll just get all official about it, Jess. So Dr. Jess Knott is the Learning Design Manager at Michigan State University, and she works there at the Hub, which is the Hub for Innovation and Learning and Technology at Michigan State. And I'll tell you what, I had the really big honor of visiting her there last year, and it's a fantastic campus, and the Hub is a really, really special place with a visionary leader, Jeff Grable, who is really driving that place into new areas. So I'm really glad that Jess is here today to share everything that they're doing there. And she basically leads a team that helps faculty, staff, and academic programs effectively integrate technology into their teaching and research. And they do consultations, demonstrations, workshops, and hands-on development. And so for the past 2 years, Jess and I have been on this LX design journey together since we met each other. We met at a conference, ended up staying at a friend's house together and just having the best conversation for about 3 hours on a Saturday morning. And since then, we've been like testing each other's thinking around what learning experience design could be and what it means in our respective contexts. So it's been great to share all of that thinking with Jess and have her there as such an influence. Last year, we presented on a panel together, in fact, organized a panel together at South by Southwest EDU, which was also great with some really insightful participation from the audience. And actually straddling not just higher education, but also looking at corporate education and how LX design could make a difference there. So that was great. And then today is going to be a little bit of a challenge for Jess. So I hope you'll bear with her because Jess is usually part of a podcast called Women Who Wine EDU. We'll pop the link in the chat. And so they usually record themselves as they're all drinking wine and they talk about the woes of working in education. So today, Jess is only drinking iced tea. So a little bit challenged.
I think we'll suffer through. We'll get there.
Okay, great. All right, so with that, Jess, I'm going to turn my webcam off and give it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Joyce. I made my badge. I'm way behind you guys, but so here's my badge. Super official. I'm going to go ahead and put that on right here. So hi, thanks for joining tonight. This is, I hope, going to be more conversational than presenting. I really prefer talking to people, so this isn't necessarily my natural habitat, but I'm super excited to see all of you and recognize so many of you from Twitter over the past few years, and just what's going on in the chat window is amazing. I've got some Midwest friends here with me today, and hey, maybe we'll meet up in real life. You never know. So the title you're seeing on my slide is different than what you've been seeing on the website because as I was wordsmithing, I just got carried away. But what I'm really talking about tonight is a path to LX design and how you can build a culture to encourage intersectionality in your work. So Joyce mentioned that I work for Michigan State University, and I actually hold a dual role. I run the learning design team for Michigan State University Information Technology, and I also have a role in the MSU Hub for Innovation and Learning and Technology. And with that in mind, I want to note that what I'm sharing today, I'm really just a presenter. The credits I wanted to put first. I mean, everything from the design of this PowerPoint, Libby Hoffman, one of our learning experience designers in the Hub, helped make this. If you know me, you know that I could never make anything look this beautiful in my life. So even just at the design level, but all of the thinking partners, and this is a very short list. There's no way that I could share everyone who's participated in the thinking that we've done in the Hub. And that's exactly what I'm here to talk about today, is how you can build that culture of thinking and iterating on ideas, on process, on team norms and values, culture, etc. So, I hope to talk for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then I really hope that we can have a conversation. My Twitter is not on right now, but I will be turning it on when we turn it over to the conversation piece, and I will be monitoring the chat. So the first question is, why intersect? So you've heard from Joyce in the open studio. As she mentioned, we met at a conference and just started talking about, user experience and service design and how could we use these things more effectively, and where did we already see them? So where were the intersections that we saw in our work and these fields that are really very similar. So if you think about user experience design and you're designing an experience for a user, or as Indy Young last night said, for people, we have to stop saying users and students and different classifications, but for people, we see that every day in instructional design and in academia. So how can we be more purposeful? So why intersect is an interesting question, right? So there are a number of reasons, ranging from different expertise sets all the way up to different perspectives. How can we make people a part of that design process? Students, faculty, staff, support staff, IT people, what goes into it? I worked at TechSmith for 2 years, and I learned a lot about designing and about running design studios and user experience design, and how important it is to have a number of voices in the room, because you'll never create a product or a learning experience that is truly cohesive and valuable if you don't have more than one voice in the room. So Joyce mentioned Jeff Grable. He's the Associate Provost for Learning and Technology at Michigan State, and he's the director of the hub, and he calls it collisions. And we joke with him all the time, like, we'll be sitting in the hub and say, hey, Jeff, we just collided. But those collisions and those arguments and heated conversations and interjections about culture really have built better products and better experiences and a better culture at the hub. So you've now heard Joyce and I talk about the hub and probably thinking, what is it? What is this thing? And there are days when we wonder, what is it? So I am in IT services, MSU Information Technology, on a team called Learning Design, and we're the centrally supported instructional designers. So we help faculty teach, we help them understand technology, we help them figure out everything from how to use the learning management system all the way to how to write a good assessment question or how to use the data that they're finding in their courses. The hub is a separate entity. An entity is a strong word in that there are only about 6 people who officially report to the hub. So the hub is working to break some of the silos on campus and leverage different structures and functions to create a better experience for MSU students, reinvent what we think of as a learning experience and learning design. It doesn't matter to the hub that I live in IT or that I'm owned by IT, or however you want to, put that in academic speak. It matters that I have a function that can contribute to the whole of what they're trying to accomplish, if that makes sense. So as we get into the process, I can illuminate that a little bit more. So the hub is basically designed to help MSU reinvent itself as a learning institution. And there are, I guess you'd say, about 15 hub projects. They're huge, they're large scale, they're spanning the entire campus. One of them is helping the vet med school reinvent their curriculum to provide more access and have students graduate with lower loan debts and rates. We have a huge learning analytics function right now. What does learning analytics mean to MSU, and what are the dangers, and what are we finding with the analytics we have, and how can we work together more effectively? Another one is, if you're a faculty member at MSU and you get hired and you come and say, how do I teach online? There's no one place for you to go. My team is out there, but we've been recently realizing in the last 6 months, 4 months, that even that information is hard to parse for people. So we're taking a big step back and saying, okay, how can we better think about how to provide support for faculty? We've been building networks. Instead of just putting up another web page filled with resources, we've been building some purposeful networks. So today we had the 4th meeting of our instructional designer network, which consists of 50 instructional designers from all over campus. My team, NMSU IT, departmental, so our College of Arts and Letters has a strong instructional design team, food safety, vet med. We have a lot of representation, and we try to co-work and collaborate on things that can benefit the entire campus. So if my process is something that works for somebody, what can they take from that, or what can they do, or how can I share that with them? So the hub really focuses on 3 things. It's people, it's space, and it's culture. So we did a whole when we first became the hub, which was about a year ago now. We've only been in the hub space since October. So this is a brand new thing. We have 15 active projects on the hub side. And in my learning design team, we have approximately 134 active projects going, not including hub projects. So we're supporting the entire campus in different ways because of this. What people do we need to fill projects? What input do we need to fill projects? What skills do we need to fill projects? And a project can be anything from the high level that I just told you about, campus analytics, what does student analytics mean, all the way down to this faculty member has an idea and they're not really sure how to make that idea happen. They're not sure if any of their students will find that idea valuable, and they need kind of a safe place to come experiment and get feedback. So we do that as well. A project could be huge or it could be tiny. Our space was designed, it was a Smith group, I believe. The architect firm came in and did a design day with us, and we sat down and brainstormed about what a space should do and what should this space look like. And here are our goals. How can we create a space that does those things? So I went from having an office with all of my stuff, my Legos and everything, to working in an open space every day. I still have the office to do things like one-on-one meetings with employees, or if anyone has a problem or wants to talk to somebody, I have a door I can close. But I now work with my backpack in an open space, and that's completely different from how I worked a year and a half ago. And third, culture. With that open space, we're building this culture. We're building a culture of transparency, which I'll get into a little bit more later, where anyone can come pitch a project at the hub. Anyone can come look at our project boards at any time and ask questions. If the provost decided, she could show up anytime and ask us, and anyone in the hub could talk about the projects that we're doing and connect her to the resources that are making it happen. So those are all driven by the values of being collaborative, intentional, and experimental. We've done some things that didn't work as well as we'd hoped, and we have built a culture that makes that okay. The process I'm about to share is one of them. We're about to go into version 3.0 of the process. When we first started, it was like, here's some boards and we think we're going to do a pitch, but we're not sure how that's going to work. So let's work through it. We did rapid iteration, feedback from the team, feedback from the outside stakeholders, and we did a version 2. And I just finished with my boss, the associate director of MSUIT. We just finished the UX research going into version 3 and how people experience that process and what they get out of it. So the process itself, the hub itself, is experimental. And we're very intentional. I don't think that's a word, but I'd like to make it one. We are very intentional about making changes, not just to make changes. So if somebody comes to me and says, this isn't working, I hate this, my first response used to be, oh, how can I fix that? Let's talk about that. How can we change the process to make it work? And now, even as a manager, I'm learning to step back and say, okay, well, let's go get more information. Indy Young talked yesterday about sometimes just listening. I take note of the questions people ask me, and I sit in that hub space, and sometimes I have my headphones in, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I have my headphones in and I forget to turn on the music and I catch a little bit of conversation, so I'll take them out and ask questions. Just being in that space makes what we do and how we think more collaborative, intentional, and experimental. And that's been a big change for all of us. My team, the instructional design team, has been undergoing change after change after change for 2 years now. It's to the point now where change is almost normal to us. And if you had asked me 2 years ago if that would be true, I don't know what I would have said. I think I would have said we'd struggle a little more than we do. So, we're learning together. Our values are to support each other as we learn together. And I'm sure we're making missteps here and there. But, ultimately, we're all moving forward together and sharing and, just kind of doing the best we can. The first project of the hub was the hub. And I think we're starting to get to where we've proven that can work. It's not easy, but it does. Kind of trying to keep track of the chats. seeing what is the overhead and time for sharing so much information. I'll get to that in just a moment, Russell. So the culture, these are the tenets of our culture. We aim to be inclusive, collaborative. If there's not a resource in the hub, so some of our projects really require a lot of data scientists and quantitative researchers and administrators who can make decisions. If we don't have those resources, we go out and find them. We build teams based from people on campus who can contribute. One of our projects is working with advisors on campus. I have an instructional designer. Her main job right now is to work with advisors, and she didn't come in with that skill set. So she's been picking that up and finding resources and building those teams as she goes along in order to support that. The work that's coming out of it has been really pretty incredible to see. But, she will come and say, hey, I'm not sure what to do about this. Who can I talk to? As opposed to saying, this is broken, help me fix it. So by going and finding those resources, we're working to empower the people on the team to find them and to build their own networks. And, there is leadership there. We are a very flat organization, though. We do tend to try to empower people to go find the people they need or help connect them, as opposed to saying, oh, let me take care of that for you. And we also work to be change agents. So, our jobs have been changing. The job I have now is not the job I was hired for 2 years ago. And it's not likely to be the job I'll have in a year. This weekend, I helped upgrade the LMS, the learning management system on campus. It was a week until 2 a.m. with the LMS upgrade team. And that was a skill that was needed and one that I could provide. But that's, not what I was hired necessarily to do 2 years ago. So we're gaining skills and learning how to be flexible as we learn what the needs are on our campus. So being change agents also means helping people understand what the hub is on campus. There's some confusion, and there has been some confusion. It's getting better, and I think we're going to have more confusion. Like, well, can't you just build my course for me? Is that not what the hub does? And so even helping the staff understand, here's what is in the kind of routine operations work, and here's what we would consider a hub pitch, helping people on campus learn what that looks like. That's part of our role as change agents. So part of that, part of what drives this is a process that we came up with that's based on Agile. I call it Agile adjacent. It's not strictly Agile. If you read an Agile book and then come to the hub, you're going to look at us like we're doing it wrong. And you're going to have a lot of questions, but we've done a pretty good job of documenting what it means. And we took a step back and looked at, okay, what are the needs? What is the journey a customer goes through when they're hired to campus and it's their first semester and they're overwhelmed. They don't even know what their healthcare is like. And now they have to teach an online course. Or, to the student who's struggling and doesn't know how to get an appointment with their advisor. We took a big step back and thought, okay, what process can we follow that will allow us to be flexible, to learn new skills, and to find people outside the hub and bring them in, and then take our skills and push them out. So it's like a back and forth. And what we came up with is a series of techniques, including a rhythm to our week. And I'm hoping this looks a little better to you than it does to me right now. It looked pretty good in the PDF, but what you're seeing here is what our week looks like. So you'll see that Monday morning, that's reserved for what we call Scrum. It's not a Scrum as defined by Agile, but it is close. It's a weekly stand-up meeting. So from 9 until 10, we want the project teams working together to plan their week and update their boards. From 10 to 10:30, we do a 30-minute stand-up. Each project gets 2 minutes. As we grow in projects, our stand-up grows in time it takes, but each project, no matter if it's the biggest one we have or the smallest one, they have 2 minutes to share. And then in the afternoon on Mondays, we save that for project time, for working, for meeting with our project teams, for doing work, for brainstorming sessions, etc. So we're asking everyone to save Monday morning for that stand-up, but then the afternoon is theirs to work. Tuesday that's all day. project time, writing. There's an expectation that we are engaging in public intellectual work. So blogging and tweeting and reading and sharing and presenting at conferences. Tuesday is reserved for work like that. We want people to be saving, 4 hours a week to work on those kinds of things. And we're currently working on a way to formalize that. It's really easy for that to be the first thing that goes. When there's an LMS upgrade and you've got 4 professors to help and your student employees asking you questions about, how maybe can they get involved in a project. It's easy for the public intellectual work to kind of take a back burner. So we're looking at ways to formalize those into SMART goals and things that will be measured for employment, like performance purposes. Yes.
Yes, I'm just butting in because I've just screenshotted that, and I'll try to upload a better screenshot so people can see it. Okay, so you can continue talking, but I'll be doing that in the background. That's
wonderful, and I'll share a PDF. I'll share a link, a PDF of these slides on Twitter or wherever you'd like to see them. I think what we can see is the basic outline. So Wednesday, the square here is say for admin time. If we're going to have an administrative meeting, like a staff meeting or something like that, I will do everything I can not to schedule it outside that Wednesday morning window so that you're saving a chunk of time. And that's when your admin work is going to happen. And then you don't have to worry about it for the rest of the week. And then Wednesday afternoons is project time again. And then finally, Thursday morning is work. And then in the middle of the day, Thursday, from like 11 to 2, we have what's called Be Available time. And what that is we all are in the space together. And if you can't be there, like we ask that you try not to do meetings at that time. There have been times when I've been on webinars at that time. If I was presenting at, if I was doing this Thursday between 11 and 2, I would probably just not be in the office that day. I would say, hey, I need to do this. And I would make sure it wasn't a regular thing at that time. There is the room for people to be available electronically, but we really do try to work in the space together because as we're working and we're thinking out loud and we're talking, that's when some of the ideas happen and some of the collisions happen and where we can, just call out, hey, I'm working on something, somebody come look at it. So Be Available time between 11 and 2 is really kind of just team co-working time. And then again, you'll see Friday we hold for projects and writing and ideas and things. It seems to work pretty well. In our data that we just collected, the rhythm of the week is working really well. What people are actually doing within those chunks is a little trickier. So when we designed it, we thought, okay, well, Monday morning will be planning time. And what we just found out is people are planning throughout the week. So they're not necessarily using that 9 to 11 for planning outside of the stand-up. So that's something interesting to look at in the future. Joyce, am I able to go to my next slide?
I will set you up just a second.
We could look at this all day. I drew this. I think it really looks nice.
Okay. Yeah, and I will just give you access again. There you go. There's your next slide.
Yeah, and I'm seeing, Wendy and Carrie are saying it would be great to have time to protect for writing. And I'm notoriously bad at doing this. Ask Joyce. I've owed her drafts for 6 months. And I'm, having a really hard time with that. Dual owned, protecting that time. But at the same time, I am finding that I can be more purposeful about the decisions I make based on pattern time because people don't tend to try to just put me in meetings all the time. So I think our results are mixed there, but they're working really well. I think we can be better. And in version 3, that's just all this is about is how can we be better? How can we protect this better? How can we give people more support? How, what's needed? So that's coming in the next iteration. We're also formalizing some professional development times. So more on that once we figure it out. I'll be providing some links later that'll be a place where you can kind of keep track, or I'll provide my contact information if anyone wants to do a video tour or talk to me, etc. It'd be great if you could meet the whole team as opposed to just me and kind of see this in action. So the second part beyond the rhythm weeks is the process. So I told you that my team has 135 projects going. That's, basically people calling and saying, hey, I need help with a course, or can you help with a workshop, that kind of thing. So a hub project tends to be a little bigger and a little more interdisciplinary. The changes we've made on the IT side is, from a manager's perspective, I used to get a request and then find a person whose skills matched and sort of see who was interested and then put that person on a project. And now we do pair programming. It's, 2 instructional designers. I usually try to find people with different skill sets who will engineer their own collisions, but people who can work well together. And then also try to throw out the, hey, who's interested in taking this, a little more publicly than just, here's the assignment, please do your project management, that kind of thing. So trying to assemble smaller interdisciplinary teams on the smaller projects. A hub project is a bigger thing. So you may need a data scientist, a faculty member, a video producer, and an instructional designer. Maybe you need 4 things. So what we do for that is a proposal process where the person proposing will draft a charter, just a typical project charter. For any of you who are familiar with project management, it's basically a living document saying what the project is, who the stakeholders are, what the scope is, what's in scope, what's out of scope, etc. Then 24 hours before our standing pitch meeting, we have a bi-weekly pitch meeting. Anytime, so the deadline is you have to have it in the Slack channel 24 hours in advance before that meeting so that we can do what we need to do and to give people time to review it. You bring that to the pitch meeting where you present it. Now, some people do slide decks, some people tell stories, some people bring the charter. How you make that pitch is up to you. That's another professional development thing we're going to start doing is, how can we make more effective pitches that really tie to our assessment anchors and our storytelling anchors? But so far, there've been some really cool ones. I find myself at the end going, yeah, that was awesome. So that's another thing that we're iterating is how to provide more support for that. But anyone can come to a pitch meeting. If somebody from campus wanted to pitch something to the hub, we would work with them to write a charter and come to the pitch meeting. We've had a couple of stakeholders on campus come already, and we'd love to see more. Often they kind of want us to do the pitch for them. And so that's a culture building thing that we're trying to do is how can we get more involvement there? Because it can be scary to come to a place and say, help me, I'm pitching to you. What if you say no? So we're working on that a little bit. Then our team, we have a Google form where we provide feedback. It's a guide of just questions and, can we take this on? Do you want to work on this? What skills could you bring? Does this align with the hub mission and vision? You have 24 hours to fill that out. So we try to get people to fill it out right away, but you know how that goes. I am a person who needs processing time, so I really try to process as much as possible. So I'm pushing the 24 hours sometimes. Then the stuff goes to the leadership team and we figure out, okay, do we have these resources? Can we get support in this department if we need it? What's the next step? Sometimes we accept it outright. Sometimes we send it back and say, hey, a little more brainstorming. Or sometimes we're like, hey, let us work with you to kind of refine this a little bit and have you pitch it again. So far, we have very few where we're like, no. If we can't do it or if it's just not a fit at all, we will not just say, nope, you're on your own. Sorry, we don't take your project. But what we will do is try to find you resources that can meet your needs, even if it's not us. So that's, even if we can't do it, we will help you find somebody who can. And then the rest just gets into operations, plan, do, and reflect. So I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit. So just to kind of break it down a little bit, here's the think. This is our space. This is what we call our flex space. It's surrounded by mobile whiteboards. This space down here tends to be where we work most of the time, but this is a meeting taking place in our space. It's a public brainstorming meeting. And we work on culture cups. Iteration 3 will make these even more accessible because right now, from a UDL perspective, they're not terribly, but green means you're available. Yellow means that you're working independently, but you're open to questions. Just, leave you out of the shenanigans. Like if we're going to race chairs or whatever, you're probably not going to join us. And red would mean do not disturb. So if I'm on a webinar and I find myself in the hub space, I'm on a red cup, so people know to leave me alone, and that I'm working in ways that can't be disturbed. So we provide a place to think and act differently. The planning piece is, these are our boards. These are another Agile adjacent piece in that these are largely signaling and transparency, even more than they are project management. So we do have task cards and we have timelines, and you can go see, this is what drives our stand-up meeting with this is what got done this week. But they're not quite as granular as an Agile board. They're close, but they're a little more macro level than you would see in a software development stand-up or a web development stand-up, for example. This link here is a link to a blog post on the Hub website called The Anatomy of a Board, and it breaks down all of the pieces in a board and how we use them. I'm also happy to share our templates with you. If any of you are interested, please feel free to let me know. This is open as far as we're concerned, and I'm happy to share those. Then this is the doing. This is our Scrum. I think we're going to move to calling it a stand-up because those who do have Agile background are kind of tripping on Scrum, because what we do is 2 minutes per project, whereas in Agile, one project will have a stand-up. So if you're on 3 projects, you might go to 3 stand-ups in a day. And ours is, again, more macro level. But this is our time. We've already gone through this a little. This link here will take you to a blog post about the stand-up and what we're hoping to accomplish and where we're hoping to go. And then each project, we build in purposeful reflection. So that might be a report, it might be a blog post, it might be a conversation or a tweet or a formal retro. Like you can see here, this is a sailboat. I'm a big fan of sailboat. If any of you have ever done it, so you draw a sailboat and you get all the stakeholders in the room and say, okay, what worked really well? And that goes at the top. And what worked okay? Maybe we want to talk about it, maybe we don't, but what was just kind of fine? And then at the bottom, what could be improved? What do we definitely need to fix before we do this again? What held the project back? I have an interactive sailboat template if you're interested in that. Again, let me know. But we do build in different pieces of reflection. And one of the things that we're finding in our data collection is that we need to build in even more purposeful reflection. So that's going to be a step that's coming in version 3. And I can't even begin to tell you what it looks like yet because the team hasn't talked about it and started to figure it out. So that's the end of the formal discussion. I know I just sent a bunch of stuff out there. Ask any questions that you have. I can't wait to hear what you guys think about this or what advice you have for us. I'd like to know if you guys are doing this in your own environments, etc. But this is the part, man. This is where this is going to get good. So at this time, Joyce, how do you want to do this?
Yeah, I'm just coming back in. Hi, everyone. So we're happy to take some questions. If you've got your microphone on, please raise your hand. Or in fact, if you haven't got your microphone on, even then, please raise your hand so that we can see that you've got a question for Jess or maybe a comment for Jess. You can use the raise hands button, which is using the little smiley icon just underneath the participants list.
I can see a couple of questions here. So Carrie, yeah. the most academics being squeezed between teaching and publishing and hassle, that's a thing we're working on. We're seeing traction there. We're seeing more people interested in participating, but that is a thing where it's just another thing where they sometimes want to just say, okay, well, here's just what I want you to do, or say, you can go participate for me. So we're trying to pull more people into the actual process itself without being so overwhelming that they don't feel like they have the time for their teaching and academics. One of the things we've done that's really cool is just co-working. Hey, you can make this space yours, come co-work with us. Sit at the table next to me. We'll put our cups out. If you have questions, do it. If you want to co-design, great. And if you just want a place to kind of be, that's awesome too. And we've seen a lot of people take us up on that. Russell was asking about the open space and how it affects the recruitment and retention of the team. We seem to be stronger and more cohesive than we have been in the past. This is me making observations. I have no data to back this up yet, aside from what I see people saying on Twitter or saying in their one-on-one meetings. It's a struggle for some people who may not feel like their skill set is quite as aligned with the hub stuff, but they still come do the work in the space and they still interact with the people who are in the hub space. And, that's great. We have something called focus rooms. So when I'm working on a big data set, you can bet I'm not sitting out in that public area. What I can do is reserve a focus room for an hour or two, go sit in a quiet space and work when I need to, or when I need to do a webinar. I was on with Virtually Connecting in Mahabali today, and I was in a focus room because I didn't want to try to do that in the public space. So I think it's too early to tell you how it affects recruitment and retention. But what I can say is we seem to be a stronger, safer team. I see us challenging each other more. I see people saying they feel safe to take risks, and I see them taking risks. And it's on us to say, okay, how can we support you in that? And then similarly, you're asking how many part-time staff are in the hub. So my team is 9 instructional designers. Of those, the equivalent of maybe 3 are committed to the hub. Then there are other, hub stakeholders. Like if we need someone with a science background, we'll buy out part of their faculty. This is on the side of the hub. Jeff and his team will buy out part of their time to participate on the project. I can't give you exact percentages just because it comes down to that structure and function. The hub is the hub. It's going to get bigger and it's going to get smaller. There are only about 6 people who report directly to Jeff and are paid by the hub. Let me see if there are any hands.
Jess, there was a question earlier that was around, I suppose, the naming and the different roles and, what kind of changes there are. So both Wendy and Colin, who are both here in Australia, Colin has recently set up a what they've called technology advisors group. I think it was, Colin. Maybe you want to pop it in the chat. But tele-advisors, yeah. And they're basically trying to put together a professional organization or a professional advocacy group around, the people who do the work that we do, even though it tends to vary and we tend to all have different role names. And I'm just wondering how you guys have managed that at MSU. What are the different roles? What are the responsibilities that go with that? And how do they help you kind of, I suppose, support the culture that you're trying to embed?
Right. So that is a multi-layered question for us. Let me start with the outside advisors that we're trying to build up and then talk about how we do it on the team. So there is something called the Hub Academic Technology Advisory Group. And that's made up of different faculty and staff from around campus where we are like, hey, we're thinking of this thing. Let's brainstorm it. What do you think? Or, we can even just say, like, we did a landscape survey. We, with that group, built the landscape survey together to ask faculty what technologies they're using and to make sure everybody's voice was represented in that and answering the questions that they have. The Instructional Designer Network I mentioned, that one's been really hard to put together. It's growing. Every time we have a meeting, we have more people ask us if they can join it. And the reason is because at MSU, we have lots of weird job titles. So you're looking at an information technologist 4S right now, which I don't know what that is. But I'm a learning design manager, and I manage the instructional design team. So my instructional designers are information technologist 1. So as we're trying to pull people's names and find people to fit the right networks, a lot of it is word of mouth. And so we're building that relatively organically. We're up to about 54 members now, and that ranges from curriculum developers to instructional technologists to, anyone who works in supporting instructional technology in any way. We have some people who are communications managers, so they're in it for the facilitation and that kind of stuff. So that group is a big advisor of the things that we're doing. And hey, how can we do this project better? We've started some working groups to create shared toolkits and processes on campus. That just has started getting underway. And when we did our survey of interest, we had about 50% really wanted to work together and make something, and the other 50% really wanted to share together and network. And so we got the working groups off the ground. Today was the day we said, okay, so the next few meetings are sharing. So let's figure this out. And then, when it comes to titles, our job posting aims to get different skill sets. It's almost like building a playing deck of skills. So I have people who know a lot about UX, and one of their SMART goals is to learn more about data and analytics. I have people who came from our experience architecture program at MSU, which is really a kind of a UX-y type program, who are now looking more into the instructional design and teaching and creative part. I have people who were media specialists who are really into, data, supervision, things like that. So what we do is we have kind of a playing card, and then with our SMART goals that are required, we have something at MSU called Performance Excellence, and we set SMART goals. The kind of rule is, hey, here are some building your current skill set. Here's what I call the weird one. What do you want to learn? What's out there, so that we continue to build the skills that we need. It's hard to go ahead.
Sorry, I was just a question from Colin, which is probably pertinent, and I think this is something that might differ quite a bit from organization to organization, is around the breakdown of people in professional versus academic role classifications. I don't know whether maybe at the hub, but I would be personally interested also to know what kind of the ratio is of support people in that area to faculty across the university, because I think the ratios really vary.
They do. So I don't know that I can answer yours, Joyce. I can kind of break it down a little bit. But so to answer Colin's question, each project has both academics and staff members on it. I can't think of a project right now that has only support staff or only academics on it. And a lot of them have students. We also have something called the Student Innovation Team. So when we're working on things, even if it's like data analytics and high-level PhDs and whatnot, we're bringing the students in to provide feedback and voice. So the projects are highly moldable. When it comes to the percentage breakdown in the hub, again, I can't really answer that. Most of the people who report to the hub are academic specialists. On my team, I am the only PhD, but we have a lot of people in master's degrees, people who are teaching online, people who are academics in their own right, as well as support staff at MSU. So Joyce, to answer your question about the percentage, I mean, I don't know that I can answer that. I'm trying to think about how I could, because that's kind of the next step in our instructional design network, is to start asking people about the numbers of people they're supporting and how we can more effectively scale across campus by collaborating together. So that is definitely in my notebook, and it's kind of the next bullet point, but I don't have the data to answer that question for you as scientifically as I'd like to right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Hey, I've got a question from Alicia here, and she's actually asking another question, just a little bit. Are students involved in the development of online courses?
Yes.
I know they are.
We have just, our students are so great. And they all graduated in May. So now we're kind of starting with a brand new crop of students. And I just met one yesterday, and I'm trying to get her involved in some of the development projects. So I'm really fortunate that one of my instructional designers is a rock star manager also. And so he kind of coordinates our student employees and makes sure that they are participating, not just in, hey, can you go build this course, but also in bringing them into some of the brainstorming sessions and working with faculty and providing student voice there. The Student Innovation Team was the brainchild of two of our students. So Libby, who did the design of this slide, and also Liz Martin. They put together a team of students. They volunteer. The Liz and Libby trained them. And then they would have design problems to solve. So when our computer store was looking at rebranding and remodeling and where they should go, they brought in the student innovation team to inform that. We've brought the student innovation team in on things like system development. We've brought them in on, we have a set of student personas created by 2 of my instructional designers. They are based in student data. So they made those personas. The students have looked at those personas and offered feedback and, hey, here's where I see myself. And if you tune into Indy, they're not personas, they're behavior segments. So they vet our behavior segments for us. They've done a lot. And then, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Design for America, but it's kind of a design thinking club in a way here in the US. So a lot of our students come from Design for America and the XA program, and they really are just like, help me make a difference. How can I be heard? What can I do? What can I tell you? So whenever possible, when we're pairing up people to work on courses or when we have a project, we do try to bring students in whenever possible. Sometimes there are FERPA guidelines or highly sensitive data, so we have to be really careful about how we bring them in. But yes, we do make them a part of the design team. And I don't want to say make them a part, we invite them to be a part of the design teams. So, I was following the OSU Innovate hashtag today. Ohio State University had a conference called Innovate. And, some of the problematizing of student voice and how do we do it and how do we treat them and what do we say? So even just, we make them a part of it. That's a problematic statement. We invite them to participate. So, lots of this moving. We don't have any right now this summer just because they're not here in the summer. But we will be starting the student innovation team up in the fall. And I think you can expect to see some blog posts and things on that.
Yeah, we've actually set up. We've tried to involve students in several different ways in the project that I'm working on now, and we've got some students as employees. So, the graphic designer in our UX team works with us like 15 hours a week, but he's a student. And we've got.
I'm seeing a lot of questions about whether we pay our students. We absolutely do. So the students who work for us.
Yeah, as do we.
Yes. So, the student innovation team at its core is our students that are paid. Sometimes they find volunteers or, we've even had times where we try to hire the students and they're like, no, I just want to do it. I don't have the time to work. I don't really have that, but I can come to this hour meeting. So we try to do things like, buy food and things like that. It's not that they're unpaid interns or anything like that. So we do pay the students.
Yeah, and Spiros and I were involved in a innovation project last year where we asked students to come along for some of the workshops, initial design workshops, which were co-design workshops with staff and also industry people, and we paid the casual staff to come in on their days to participate in that, so that we got their voice in as well, and the students were not paid money, but they were paid in vouchers, and some of them continued to be involved afterwards as we were prototyping, as like part of a focus group, etc. So it was really great.
I see that Wendy wants to come be an intern, so come on up, Wendy. I mean, it's only like a 30-hour flight or something. It was really easy for Joyce when she came.
It was really easy. It was like 3 planes, and then somebody had to pick me up and drive me for 4 hours across Michigan.
Well, it's a big state shaped like a mitten. Anyone who is on this call or is watching this in the future, please reach out to me. I have a couple people I owe video calls to, but it really is easy for me to call on Zoom or set up a Zoom room where we can continue this conversation in the actual space. I can get hub people and and stakeholders and whoever and try to have some of these conversations, or if we're having be available time, you can just log on to Zoom and co-work with us. So that invitation is open. I'm teasing you about the flight, but if you want to see the hub or you want to ask some questions, let's do it. That is an open invitation.
Yeah, so as part of the LX design, so we've organized the conference now, but we're really keen to embed some of these community tools into the LX design site and kind of keep it going. as a place where, you know, we can share information about LX design and where people can connect with each other and learn like kind of around the globe. So I know a few people have been having glitches today coming into this session, but we're hoping to figure that out. And then we could do like monthly calls or even, you know, like twice monthly calls to continue like knowledge sharing. So yeah, keen to do that, and we can get Jeff in.
Yes, I would love for all of you to talk to anyone on the Hub team. So we have the, I'll try to figure out how to get this to Joyce to share with you, but pretty much all of us are on Twitter, along with some of our big partners and stakeholders on campus. It's just, you know, I don't want you to engage with me, you know, and I'm seeing quotes come from the presentation, and that's awesome. That's why I wanted to start with the credit slide, is that this isn't just me. This is a whole team that's really dedicated to a very painful process. So, and painful in a good way, you know, painful for growth, not just, hey, it hurts. So, you know, I would love for you to engage with anyone on Twitter. I'll tell them to expect you, so you're not just like, what? But yeah, I'll get that to Joyce, and let's see if we can open this conversation more. I will serve as your entry. If you want to come do a video with the Hub, contact me. If I can't do it, I'll connect you with someone else, just like we would at the Hub. So,
all right, great.
That is open.
Well, I think that's all the time we've got, and I know that some people are having to leave because of meetings, and other people are. It's getting late for them. But Jess, it's been absolutely wonderful conversations. I always love our conversations. We tend to talk really, really early for me on like a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, and it just totally sets me up for the rest of the day. So I'm hoping that everybody had that experience with you today, and I'm sure they did. There's been a lot of stuff being shared on Twitter, and obviously really, you know, hitting the chords with people in the chat as well. So thank you, Jess. Can everyone just give Jess a virtual applause? We can do this.
Virtual applause is the cutest thing ever. I was so tickled when I did that last night. I was just like, oh, virtual applause.
All right, I'm taking away your presenter rights, and I just want to remind people that we've got an open studio coming up now where we can continue the conversation if you want to. So you'll have to go back into the site and go into the open studio room with your mic on to make it easier for us to chat to each other. And then in about an hour, we have Perrin Rowland from beaming in from Auckland. She's a UX designer who then moved into e-learning and has now moved back into UX. So bringing a really interesting perspective to that. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing from her as well. And we apologize again for anyone who did have technical difficulties getting in. And Mark was working very hard behind the scenes to try to problem solve in real time. And we'll look into making sure that that doesn't happen again. So thanks everyone for your patience. Thank you, Jess, for sharing all of your wealth of knowledge. And we will see you all in the open studio or in an hour to talk to Perrin.